Look, I was in IT operations 15, 20 years ago, and I still talk to people in IT operations, and the stories are all the same as the stories that I went through as my experiences 15 to 20 years ago.
This is DevOps Paradox, episode number 320. Why dashboards alone are not enough for incident response. Welcome to DevOps Paradox. This is a podcast about random stuff in which we, Darin and Viktor, pretend we know what we're talking about. Most of the time, we mask our ignorance by putting the word DevOps everywhere we can and mix it with random buzzwords like Kubernetes, serverless, CI/CD, team productivity, islands of happiness, and other fancy expressions that make us sound like we know what we're doing. Occasionally, we invite guests who do know something, but we do not do that often since they might make us look incompetent. The truth is out there, and there is no way we are going to find it. P.S. It's Darin reading this text and feeling embarrassed that Viktor made me do it. Here are your hosts, Darin Pope and Viktor Farsic. Viktor, when was the last time you crashed a website?
I crashed a website. Somebody else's website. I'm not that powerful, man.
Are you sure? Are you really sure?
I mean, it's not that I haven't tried. I tried to crash Google, but it doesn't crash because of me.
Okay. Well, let's flip it around. What if you were the one sitting in the chair having to deal with somebody like you trying to crash somebody's site? How would you feel?
I would change the job.
You would change the job. How quickly would you change the job?
Immediately. Or I would claim that I'm hit by a bus or something like that, incapacitated.
Okay, hit by a bus. We don't want to be hit by a bus today. On today's show, we have Jim Hirschauer on from Xurrent. Jim, how you doing?
Doing great. How about you, Darin?
Very well, thank you. Did my story there make any kind of sense? At least the second half of the story? Me being the grunt and the fire sets off and I just quit?
Very much so. I mean, I've been that person on the other side of that, rage clicking a website while it's not working properly. It's not a good feeling.
Not a good feeling. So that's the consumer side of it. But as an SRE or whatever the title is of the month, it feels like we have an incident happen, right? So all of a sudden we get a big DDoS or fill in the blank. It doesn't matter. And now we have the fire drill. We get everybody in the office. No, they're not paying for pizza today because budget. And we're just having to deal with it.
Budget is spent on AI.
I'm sure we'll get to
That's
that.
why
I'm
there
sure.
is no budget.
but
We got there way too quickly.
Right? It was way too fast to do that. Yeah. If this was a drinking game, there was your first one.
That's right.
Nothing has changed in incident management, has there? I mean, other than, okay, AI is starting to mix in, but let's ignore that for just a moment, or maybe a few moments.
Look, I was in IT operations 15, 20 years ago, and I still talk to people in IT operations, and the stories are all the same as the stories that I went through as my experiences 15 to 20 years ago. There's still war rooms. There's still disconnects. There's still silos. No matter how much we try and break down those silos, they're still there as far as I can tell. So yeah, I think we're still doing a lot of the same things during incident management that we've been doing for a very long time.
Will that ever change?
I hope so.
Well, we all hope so. I mean, some of the tools have gotten better over time, right? Because way 15, 20 years ago, we didn't have HipChat, rest in peace. We didn't have Slack. We didn't have all these. We might have had Skype. We might have had AOL Messenger or Yahoo Messenger. But that was about it.
Yeah.
And a telephone.
Yeah.
Do you remember what a telephone is?
Oh, I remember the tragedy of having. You remember the rotary dialing of the telephone?
Yes,
when
I do.
you would mess that up and you'd have to start all over again. I still have nightmares about that.
Let me play devil's advocate. I think that many of the problems we had back then are solved today. It's just that problems are very different than back then, right? Whatever issues you had like 20 years ago in production, right? Those are easy to solve now. The issues that we're having now are very, very different. So it's not that we haven't moved on. It's just that somebody's hobby site is these days bigger. Influencer has a bigger personal site with more traffic than whatever you were working on 20 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt. The problem space is bigger. trying to solve the problems has gotten much more complicated. We have much more complexity. You guys know this well, right? There's all these virtualization layers that factor in now that people have to troubleshoot. But one of the things that I think is still very similar across this is the process that's used and how there are various stakeholders across every company that need to be updated, and they all need to be updated in different ways. I remember being in war rooms and having executives kind of drop in and just stop everything that was going on, and sometimes nicely and other times not very nicely sort of demand an update as to where everyone was. And so we all had to kind of stop what we're doing and provide that update one by one to those executives. Everyone's under tremendous pressure, so I get the reasoning, but we should be able to fix those things. And again, in the conversations that I have, when I talk to people about this, they're still saying, yeah, we still experience all of these things. We experience the siloing, the problematic communication, even though we have more communication tools than we've ever had in the past, and they're a lot better. It's still not a fixed problem from like when you consider like the end-to-end workflow of incident management. So I wholeheartedly agree with you, Viktor, but I think there's also some things that we're just kind of stuck in our old ways with.
So is the problem then realistically human nature?
Part of it.
Kind
Absolutely.
of not being able to, like one long time ago, I'm not going to name the real name. Let's call her Nina, right? I wrote in my incident report that this took much longer because of her coming to ask for the status. That was the real problem.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is a cultural thing. So there's for sure there's cultural aspects to this. Tooling can help. There's authority. So during an incident commander has tremendous amount of authority to make sure that the service is restored, whatever's going on, that service gets restored as quickly as possible. But then typically after that incident is over, when everybody high fives after we've restored service, we all have a mountain of work to go back to. We have our email queue or our Slack messages, or we're still behind. We got even further behind than we were before this war room exercise. And we've got to go ahead and try and catch up now. And so a lot of times we don't go back and fix a bunch of the things that we really know we should go fix, the things that the postmortem has said, hey, these are root causes. These are things that you need to go back and circle back on and make sure this doesn't happen again. And so we see a lot of these repeat incidents. And I ask about this every time I go and talk. I still go and talk at conferences, and 75% of the room raises their hand when I ask, do you have the same incidents happening over and over again? So I believe this is still a pervasive problem throughout the industry.
If people are having the same incidents over and over again, we're at that definition of insanity. Is the problem that the people that's had the incident before have all left, so now we have a new set of people, and it's new to them other than having the history that it's happened before?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Tribal knowledge, again, I think back to 15, 20 years ago, and tribal knowledge was so important. And being able to capture that tribal knowledge and pass that along. So now we have tooling where we should be able to capture that tribal knowledge. I fear bringing up the term AI here because of the conversation we just had about the drinking game, but that should help us, right? We're kind of moving into a new frontier here where tribal knowledge doesn't have to leave a company when a human being leaves a company now. Hopefully we can do a much better job of maintaining that tribal knowledge, and ultimately the goal is make systems as reliable and resilient as possible. And I think there's been huge strides over the last 15, 20 years. I'm not saying there hasn't, but we still really have a lot of work to do in this area. And I think that's a combination of culture, it's a combination of tooling, it's getting our processes right, it's getting our technology utilized in the right way and aligned in the right way to really focus on solving some of these challenges.
So all those after-action reviews that people have written after every incident,
yeah,
they always got stacked up in a directory somewhere, got stacked up in a wiki somewhere, and were never analyzed to figure out what's going on. We didn't have the tooling then to do that. Again, take a drink. AI can help us with that.
Yeah.
Right. That's going to be one of the things that summarization stuff, forget all the Gen AI stuff. I could care less about that because that doesn't help me out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to feed it text and have it correlate without me having to think about it, that's pretty darn useful.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's where we're headed towards. Again, I think we still have a long way to go. Everything AI, in my opinion, is really in its infancy still. I don't get much disagreement when I say that. Things are very simplistic right now. We see a really great future forming in front of us, and a lot of companies are doing a lot of good things to push that along. But when we need to focus on problems, right? So that's the key here is like, okay, so like we have this problem that we've identified and now we're going to focus on solving that challenge. So, that's something that we're doing at my company. We're heavily focused in this area. And of course, it's near and dear to my heart. So that's why I'm a part of it, because I was a part of IT operations for so long. And these problems, they need to be completely eradicated going forward. Incidents will still occur. But wouldn't it be amazing if we could just, from every single incident, stop that same type of incident from happening ever again for that service, so you don't have to worry about that one?
I think back to AWS and the great 2012, 13, 14 EC2 outage. I can't remember the exact year anymore. It happened once and it happened twice. But that's been very few and far in between. I think probably what happened under the hood for them, I have no real knowledge of this, but they had some run books there, probably, whatever run book looked like for them. And they probably broke it out when the second time happened, started playing out to make sure nothing else occurred that way. I think back to run books in the 80s and 90s, it was a Word document, a Word perfect document, because Word didn't exist yet. But it would get out of date. We'd think to update it maybe, because we'd always have the same issues over and over again because we were in our own data centers. Yeah. Now with this cloud thing, it's like things moving all over the place. Microservices on top of that. It's like, come on. The sprawl of our estates have become just probably our biggest problem. And we've done it to ourselves.
It's interesting when you bring up run books. Again, thinking back to my IT ops days, development team was usually running behind in development, and it wasn't the development team's fault. Like the goalposts kept getting moved by the business on the development team. So naturally, as the business keeps changing what they want in their application, the development team would get further behind. And so when applications would launch, run books would be very sparse. There would be some level of information in those run books about troubleshooting procedures and what to do in certain circumstances, but they were pretty sparse in almost all cases to start out with. And then as the application got changed and upgraded, those run books didn't get updated very frequently. And so that the run book information would get outdated as well. And so I think it's another great example of another area where we can improve today. I think AWS is an interesting example because they have a lot of resources, right? And so most companies don't have the level of resources that an AWS has or any of these gigantic providers have. So most companies need some level of assistance there. So that's another real problem that, again, I think we're on the cusp of seeing some great solutions there. There's definitely already some attempts at creating run books automatically based upon the information that's gathered during an incident. So there's multiple different software vendors out there that do that. So I think that's a huge step in the right direction. And I think that's one of the bookends of this problem that we're really talking about. So when I think about incident management and incident response overall, it's pretty easy to break it down into 4 just big phases where you have like this pre-incident work, run books essentially. You've got detection with observability systems, you're alerting, just identifying that there's some sort of issue going on. And then you've got the resolution step, and then you've got the post-incident work to really do the break fix and all of the post-mortem tasks to make sure this doesn't happen again. And so IT has gotten really good at those 2 middle steps, right? Detect it and restore service. We're really good at that. We've gotten good over many years, but we've sort of neglected the other steps that bookend. We've neglected that the pre-work, the run books, and we've definitely neglected the post-incident work. Again, not because we don't want to make it better, but because the business is demanding of our time and we're all essentially overworked.
So can't we just shut the business down for a week and get all caught up?
Well, ask the business leaders that, how they would feel about that.
Just tell them they can go play golf for a week. Leave us alone.
Yeah, I'd take it.
So pre-incident and post-incident, that's where you're saying we're just falling down.
Yes, I think there are huge issues there. Of course, during those two middle steps, there's always opportunities to improve, right? We're constantly getting better at that. But again, we're good there. And so, yes, we're falling down in those other two steps, the pre-incident, the post-incident, and we're falling down during the incident, especially with like communicating out, even though many companies have status pages now, which are great. I use status pages all the time. Great example of this, our website for my company. I tried to go on and make a change and I was having trouble. It was slow to respond, the user interface. And so I had to go look at their status page and get some status updates from them. So that's great. I got to see status update for the end users. What I started to wonder about is how are they updating their executive staff? You know, Victor, you mentioned there was a person that slowed everything down because they wanted updates. And so I started to wonder, how did they update their internal executive staff? Because I guarantee they were asking about it, right? They wanted to find out, when is this going to be restored, because nobody could go in and change their websites.
But in that case, and I had my variations of Nina as well, those were always the funny to where, okay, we'd just gone through, we'd done a dump, and they walk in 2 minutes later, it's like, hey, I'm here now. Let's go ahead and have the meeting. It's like, we just had it. Do you want us to get back to work, or do you want to fixing it, or do you want us to tell you again? No, I need you to tell me what's going on. Okay, well then we can't work on it.
I feel that part of the problem is that tools are generally created to speak a single language. When I say language, I don't mean literally English, but hey, this is the tool that ops people use, right? They understand inputs and outputs of that tool perfectly. And you cannot give it to anybody else. So Nina has no usage of whatever you're using, you're recording, whatever you're doing is not a language that Nina speaks. So of course she's going to come and ask you, okay, so what's the status? I mean, I see those 500 pages of something. I have no idea what's going on. And this is not, what I'm saying now is not even directly related with incident management, right? We see that all over and over again. Different roles speak different languages, and they don't understand each other. And that's okay, because, hey, I don't understand all languages either. But tools tend to be very focused on the buyer almost exclusively, not on all the potential users of that tool. I'm now philosophical. I'm not sure how much this made sense, though.
No, that makes perfect sense. And that's exactly one of the core issues that we still have today. And again, I think this is a great opportunity for us to utilize that two-letter word, two-letter acronym AI, right? So it's a great opportunity to utilize that to take the things that IT operations understands really well and convert that into information and an update for the various stakeholders. Because yes, there are distinctly different stakeholders across the enterprise, the executive level, the application owner level, the practitioner level, the end user level, right? When like our company, we have software where the service desk operates off of our software. And so they get end users calling in, whether that be internal users from the company or whether they're external facing and they're actual end users that are consumers or customers. There are people that are actively looking for updates on like, hey, my stuff's broken and I need to know what's going on. I need to be able to trust that you're going to give me an estimate as to when this will come back up. Maybe it's a bill pay and I have a bill that's due and I've got to pay it today. Am I going to be able to pay it today? Right. So they need an update from everybody needs an update from their own perspective. So I think this is what becomes really powerful. Once you start to put all of this data together across incident management from within the platform where the incident is being worked, right? So often that'll be through Slack or Teams right now. The modern tools can work just through those. And so they're Slacker teams will be an interface into modern tooling that is doing the actual incident response across into the service desk software that is getting a lot of information about how many users are impacted, how many people are calling in here, how many people are in the chat bot, how many people are sending emails, whatever communication method they have. If you put all that all the data together, now you can actually create much more meaningful updates for the various levels. The executives can really get a much better understanding of how upset are our customers right now, right? Because the service desk bears the brunt of that, not the team working the war room at that moment.
So it's a sliver of time. So let's lay out the four again. Pre-incident, detect, restore, post-incident.
Mm-hmm.
The actual incident is in between detect and restore. It's a small sliver of actually what's going on. It seems like detect should always be going on.
Yes.
Hopefully. And what we detect, hopefully, well, that's my point here. Detect should always be going on and also always should be feeding back into pre-incident.
Yeah.
Because to me, just thinking out loud, I should be able to see what if it's an application where it's web or client server, yes, those still exist. We should be able to at least see standard patterns emerge. And that should feed back into pre-incident. And that way, if that curve changes, pre-incident should start yellow flagging things if something goes awry.
Yes. In an ideal world, absolutely.
Why do we keep saying ideal world?
It's because I have battle scars from trying to implement these solutions at so many companies. There are so many companies still today that have certain levels of monitoring in place and observability in place, but they're still completely underserved in many of the applications that are important applications across the business. So many years ago, again, it's been decades here since I was working in major financial services companies, trying to get major financial services companies to monitor their important applications and have the right alerting set up. When a war room would start, people would come into the war room and say, what monitoring do we have? And everyone would start looking around. Like, that's the wrong first question to ask in the war room. It shouldn't be like, what do we have? We should know what we have already. It should be, what is the information telling us? What are the initial indicators here? We were starting from the wrong perspective. And I've worked for many different companies over time. And one of the companies I worked for was a monitoring and observability company, or a couple of them actually. And so even over all of these years, I've gotten to see the lack of monitoring, observability, and proper alerting, and then a proper alert management beyond that still exists out there today. It's really incredible.
Is it just that because we think we've got the data, so that's all that we need? Yeah. We never really come up with a way to truly interpret the data that's coming in?
Yeah, I fell into that same exact situation. I had, I'll say, instrumented, for lack of a better term, but this was like a really long time ago with my IBM systems, where I had CPU utilization, disk utilization, memory utilization, basic server metrics flowing into spreadsheets, and charts were being created. And so I felt really good about all the data that I had. And then we had a massive incident, and I started looking at all this data, and I'm like, what does this chart even mean? Like, what is my CPU normally? I don't know, but I see what it is right now. So then I had to start looking back through this history of charts. And so we've gotten to this culture of like relying on dashboards, but we don't necessarily know how to interpret those dashboards. And I think they give us a very false sense of security. So again, another great opportunity to feed data into systems that can make sense of that for us.
I'm kind of negative towards dashboards, for a simple reason that I feel that dashboards represent knowns. Kind of like, we know that this might happen.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I choose not to fix it for good. And they would utterly fail with unknowns, which are the real problems. The real problem is this never happened before. Unless you have very good imagination or you're clairvoyant, you haven't designed a dashboard for something that never happened before. Sure, I mean, you will see the spike in CPU and memory and things like that It's not that I'm not saying it's useless, right? But it's not really covering the real incidents. And by real, I mean, this never happened before.
And what does that mean, though? What does a spike in CPU utilization really mean? Did we just get busier and it's good? Like we're doing more business and the systems are handling it just fine? Yeah. Or is it like a problem, right? And our customers are unhappy. So like walk into any operations center anywhere and you're going to see lots of dashboards, right? All the monitors are going to be plastered with dashboards. So we definitely need to do a better job of interpreting that, the systems that receive alerts. Hopefully we've got alerts configured. Again, that was a huge part of my job when I was back in these financial services companies was going to each application and working with them to figure out what should we be alerting on, right? So the alerting should go into this alert management system, and hopefully that can make sense of this.
That's another question I have. It's truly a question. So when you design a dashboard, you usually design a dashboard with, some thresholds that say, hey, this is probably not okay level of CPU usage, right? So you already know what the threshold is.
Yeah.
So that means that you can just as easily create an alert, right? For the same thing that you can.
Yeah.
And then if you already have alert, why are you watching at the dashboard?
I disagree with most static thresholds, by the way. Like I really dislike static thresholds in most circumstances, except for disk utilization. Once you get disk fills up to a certain point, you want to get ahead of that and make sure you're cleaning out your disks or adding more capacity. But in most cases, and this is what I started to implement in these companies I used to work for, I did dynamic thresholding where the software would do machine learning and it would build bands of normalcy. And when things got outside of normal too far, then it would trigger an alert. And that didn't mean that there was a problem necessarily. It meant you should pay attention. Like it's kind of like, hey, put the antennas up because something really bad could happen. And then maybe if you combine some of those together, then they really start to mean a problem. And Darin, I think this gets back to what you were talking about a little bit earlier, was starting to see patterns in the data, right? And so this is really nearly impossible for humans to do, especially at scale with so many applications that we have and so many servers and virtual environments processing all of this. So again, another great opportunity for our friend AI. There's many different technologies that could be at play here, but something to look at that and make more sense of it. And then that should carry into the war room, right? That initial triage should be available as soon as the humans need to get involved. And that becomes part of this incident resolution process so that the incident response software becomes an assistant, right? It's going to help the SREs or whomever is doing the troubleshooting, firefighting. It's going to help them come to decisions faster. And if they don't have information, they should just be able to ask for it. I need information on this. And the system should just go get it from the appropriate system of record for that information and then correlate it with what's going on so that it can help them come to intelligent decisions and maybe start to make guesses about what the root cause is, right? Or how to restore service immediately, and then what the root cause might be.
Because I'm not sure whether this is my limited experience speaking now, but I have impression that very often the problem is not that you don't have information, but you have too much of it. And you have to have, because you don't know what will happen, so you're going to collect a lot of data, and that feels okay. But then an incident happens, and what do? Do I go through those zillions of lines of metrics and logs and what's or not? If some type of software, whatever it is, can actually at least give me a clue, look over there, kind of like look to the left. That feels
that's exactly what's happening
like
now.
Very
yes.
helpful.
So yes, and that's exactly what's going on right now. By the way, like you've hit the nail on the head. That is a huge problem. It's one of these problems in this incident management process. And yes, software is being designed to do exactly that, right? And so there are early versions of that are out right now, and those are getting better and better at really helping you just focus, right? Cut through the noise. Here are the things that are important. Here are the things that are deviating, right? Metrics that look great, that look the same as they always looked when there are no issues. you can probably throw most of those away. You probably don't need to look at those. But these ones that are skewed very out of the norm right now, these are the ones you want to pay attention to, because they're going to point you to how to restore that service as quickly as possible.
It seems like in that case, when we're trying to restore that, the way I've been sitting over here thinking is this data that I'm being given, rather the summary that I'm being given from the data, is either going to be spot on or it's going to send me down a really bad rabbit trail and keep me off the real case for an hour or two because we're just chasing a bunny.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, AI is probably not going to fix that.
Right.
Near or even midterm.
Yeah, not soon. But that's the expertise, right?
Yeah.
There's that old expression, there's no substitute for experience, right? And so that's the human portion of this equation is absolutely critical. And I shudder when I hear the stories and people come up and ask if I'm, working at a conference, and people will come up and ask and say, hey, can I use your software to replace people? I don't want to replace people. People are absolutely vital in this process. You can use the software to gain tremendous productivity and efficiency. And so you can do a lot more with the people that you have, but you need those people still. We need human beings in the loop here for sure, in the near term and probably that midterm as well. In the long term, who knows what's going to happen with all of this. But I don't want to live in that world yet. I don't have the trust in the systems yet. Hopefully very few people have the trust in these systems yet, where they feel comfortable letting these systems go and make decisions and make configuration changes and try and do very difficult tasks within our environments on their own, because I think that would be disastrous.
There are, of course, too many people saying AI is going to replace people. I completely disagree with that. But what I do feel that we are on the edge of replacing mundane or tasks or chores that people need to do to get to do what really matters. Like if I use the previous example, right? If there is an incident, me going through thousands of records is a chore, right?
Yep.
Me actually deciding what should be done when I get to the meat of the problem, that's the value work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Productivity gain, right? So cut out the stuff that takes us a long time and that machines are really good at doing really fast. And then it lets us do what we do best.
Exactly.
I'll say it a little bit differently. Let the machines be the ones that watch the dashboards instead of the humans.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, other than having a pretty graph in front of me, that's about all it is.
They are pretty sometimes. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's nice to look at those dashboards, but maybe an occasional glance from a human is fine, just to admire the work that's been done.
Are people so badly paid in this industry they cannot afford Netflix? Is that what we're saying?
I hope not.
Well, I think the chart that you don't want to see is a Christmas tree farm. That's what you don't want to see. And if you don't understand what a Christmas tree farm is, just think up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. That's what you don't want to see.
Yeah.
For most things.
Although I think Netflix has gotten pretty expensive, Victor, to your point.
Netflix is more expensive than my AI subscription now. So guess which one got dropped?
Yeah.
I'm still sitting here and I'm thinking time. Again, going back to pre-incident, detect, restore, post-incident. And in that sliver between detect and restore is the incident itself.
Mm-hmm.
In a perfect world, pre-incident and detect are 90%. Incident is 1%. Restore is, call it 5%. And then everything else goes to post-incident.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like it should be, right? When an incident happens, it should be able to be resolved quickly, especially if it's been something that we have seen or similar to what we've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a brand new, like that first EC2 outage that happened.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anytime you have a first, it's fine for the window to slide way open. And I would even say a second or third time, it's okay too. Because especially if they're happening in rapid succession. It's not good, but it's okay. It's understandable. we've already talked about it. Lots of monitoring doesn't mean we have a solution. It's more of a problem to me. Just because I have a lot of monitoring, that just means I'm paying a observability vendor way too much money to store data.
You've given yourself a chance, though.
Yeah,
like,
you got to
give yourself a chance. Yeah.
Well, you've given yourself a false security of a chance, because if all you've been doing is stuffing the data back, you still don't know what's going on.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But at least you'd have the data.
Yeah.
Now what do I do with it? I don't know.
Well, think about that small sliver, though, that you're talking about. A small sliver in the middle is outrageously expensive, right? If that's the business,
it's the most expensive.
System. Yeah,
it is more than likely the most expensive of the five now, including.
And so the whole goal should be avoid that sliver in the middle. Do everything you can to avoid that small sliver. And the way, again, like I'm pushing this out there as my opinion, the way to avoid that is with better run books, because those run books, hopefully the operations center is getting some early indicators with some alerts starting to fire. Another lesson I learned from many years in IT operations is things didn't usually just boom. They just didn't go down hard immediately. There was a spiral. Things spiral out of control. In every postmortem I ever did, there were indicators there. Things started to slow down. There were occasionally, like a full network outage with just like boom, weird, strange things. But that almost was never the case, right? So 95% of the time there were indicators there. And if you have the right run books in place, hopefully your operations team can get ahead of it and start and test the right things, or supplement that operations team with really good automation here, where you have automated playbooks and run books that kick in and do the testing and flag things to the right people and say, hey, like the result of this test indicates that this is an issue. If you go fix this, then we should not have this outage that we're headed towards. Right. So that, to me, that's a huge part of avoiding that little tiny sliver. And then when you do hit that sliver, because it's going to happen for sure, that portion on the back end, after you've already hit it, there's going to be a bunch of things that you can do to make sure, or to try your best to make sure that that's not going to happen again. So fulfill those things. Make sure you've really identified all the right tasks to follow up on, and then give people that ability. Give someone authority, give a team authority to follow up on it. Track these things. Make sure executives have the right view into the post-incident activities that are supposed to happen, and incent people to fix that so that that little sliver in the middle doesn't happen again. So hopefully if you get the first part and the last part right, you may take care of that middle significantly more often than it's happening now, right? So significantly fewer incidents is the goal.
So it sounds like you're proposing for a 2025 look, run books are automated. Mm-hmm. Yes, that makes total sense. If it can be automated, it should be automated.
Mm-hmm. The updating and creation of run books should be automated as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we're going to automate away telling business that we need to not do what's been promised for the next quarter so we can make sure that this doesn't happen again.
So that's again a top-down cultural issue. And so that's a business case. And so just with everything that we do, there's a business case. These operation centers, they know how many incidents they have. We tracked, when I was in, again, these financial services companies, we tracked how much these outages cost us. These outages, even though, we're mentioning a small sliver as the typical outage, that small sliver can be anywhere from minutes, but in some cases, it's days. The head of product that works at my company, in his previous company, he worked for an online retailer, and they had a significant issue that went on for 72 hours. This is a major retailer, right? And so they do a massive amount of business. So that was a major impact to them because they lost those sales, right? That revenue went to some other company. So it's the business case. And so that business case should drive the change. And there has to be a cultural change in this respect to either leave room for the people who need to make those fixes that work there today, or to spend a little bit more to get a little bit more capacity to plan for this, right? And so the business case is simple, right? It just depends on how exposed you are. It depends on how good your current teams are. Again, some companies have a lot of resources and the business case won't be there for them. Okay. But for many companies who don't have that many resources, they should see that they can make this business case very easily.
What should be the utilization of an operations person today?
Ooh, that's a tough question. What should it be? According to whom? From whose perspective? From the ops person or their executive staff?
The executive staff, I believe, they're going to say, well, they're 3 floors underneath the streets in the data center, so it doesn't really matter. We'll just keep them going 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Or 99% of the time because they'll get a day off sometime because they have to go to the dentist.
Yeah.
From the management of those operations people, they're probably going to think 90%. The peers of the operations people is like, I do so much unplanned work, I probably spend 75% of my week doing unplanned work.
Yeah.
If not more. And sometimes, especially, you're not going to be able to have an ops person that can do everything. Yes, there are a few that can do that, but that's not typical. I think that's the biggest problem is we are over allocating what the operations people can actually get done.
We are, and we're making it worse today. There's definitely the do more with less mentality. It's definitely there. We see it. I've seen it for multiple years at this point. In our industry, there's a lot of conversations about burnout, and it's a real problem. And that has to be factored in here as well. We have to take care of our people. We have human beings that, just think of a car. You can't run a car at 100% all the time. You're going to burn out the engine, right? It has to rev up and rev down, run at partial power. If you're just at full power all the time, it's going to be a very short-lived engine. It's going to break down. The human is very similar to that. And we're a lot more complex, right? So we have a lot more things going on in our lives. So this is another topic that is really near and dear to my heart. I know many people in this industry who have burned out and they've just had to quit the industry because it just was too much of a grind and it chewed them up and it spit them out. And I don't, when we have this conversation, I don't want to even imply that executives don't care. I believe executives really do care. And I think this is a huge challenge that they want to solve. But at the same time, there are these business demands. And so there's a lot of factors here. And I don't think people have ill will. I don't think anyone wants to see another human being burn out because they're overworked. But at the same time, the business needs to deliver. And so there has to be some sort of balance in there. And I think that's what every company struggles to find.
Well, if they don't, if the executives don't hit their numbers, they don't get their bonuses or their golden parachute doesn't open.
Yeah.
Sorry to all the executives, but that's the way I see it from bottom up. And I think that's the way that most people from bottom up see it.
And I would say at the same time, I've known many executives and they work a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
they're us grunts
they're dealing
that don't
with
see from
many
the bottom.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's even worse.
Yeah.
But I typically don't see the executives in when something's hit the fan at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
You hope not, actually. Right?
Preferably, yes. You don't.
That's the last thing you want to see at that point in time.
Yes.
You just want to get it fixed and then go back to sleep as quickly as possible. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
So where does Xurrent fit into all this? Now, Xurrent, okay, you're doing your smart Web 2.0 naming here. That's what this is. It's Xurrent, so like current except with an X.
Yeah,
and it's
perfect.
Pronounced like Xerox Xurrent, if you will.
Yes. Yep. So Xurrent is across all of these things that we've been talking about, unsurprisingly, right? Think of Xurrent as a platform for IT operations, for IT service management, for enterprise service management. So the service desk would utilize our software. And so we have this ticketing and request software with workflow automations that are designed to improve collaborative productivity, right? And so think of a workflow as a process that kicks off from person to person, and everybody knows what they're supposed to do at the right times. There's a self-service portal where end users would come in. If, let's say, there is an incident going on, end users might come into the self-service portal and report an incident and look for some sort of status update on that incident. And so you tend to start to see many tickets for the same thing when an incident occurs. So that's why status pages become so important, which is another part of Xurrent overall. We have this product called StatusCast that does status pages as well. So it gets that communication out, but also to various layers, because based on your role, you can see different things. And so there can be an executive update in there. And so the executive can just read it within StatusCast, and another person in another role logs in and they'll see a different update, right? So that's the key here. We're trying to communicate to the various stakeholders in the way that they need to be communicated with. And then the third part of what we have is this automated incident response, where we understand who is responsible for what services, and we take in alerts and we make sense of those alerts, and we assist in solving the problem as quickly as possible, updating these runbooks and playbooks, sending the post-incident activities, those tasks that need to be performed. It does like an automated postmortem, sending those back into the request system for that service, the service management system, and making sure that there are requests in there that are automatically generated so that teams can go ahead and track those and start working on those. So we're working on solving this end-to-end issue that we've talked about. We're not there yet all the way. We have many pieces of this in place right now, and we're working on getting more of the pieces, more of the analytics layer in place to help and assist as much as possible throughout the process. So that's what we've been working on. And again, I joined the company because I had a background in this, and when I heard the vision for where the company was headed, the problem resonated with me because I'd seen the problem throughout my career in IT operations. And then after my IT ops career, when I was working for various vendors in the IT operations space, I kept seeing the same problems over and over again. So that was a really worthwhile thing to participate in. And hopefully we can help solve a very big challenge that many companies face.
We've already talked about how we sort of see AI today, infancy, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Is it being helpful now for y'all within Xurrent? Think back to beginning of 2025 compared to October of 2025. How big of a jump has it been for you?
Yeah, so things are really coming together. So over time here, what we've done is we've identified where are the places where AI can be a productivity assistant, where it's a productivity enabler for folks that need to use the system, whether that be an end user coming in a self-service portal, or whether that be within the system, doing postmortems in the automated incident response, which is called Zen Duty, by the way. Then, we have within the service management portion, the agents or specialists. There are plenty of opportunities to assist them also with summarization of long tickets with lots of information in them. So quickly summarize that, let the AI handle that. With writing documentation, this is a huge one. This is like something I hated doing when I was in IT operations. I don't know many IT people that really like writing documentation. So AI is great at that. So from any note in any request, you can say, hey, AI, here's from this note, I need you to create a knowledge article. And it will look at the context of this request and all of the notes contained within. And this is for solving some sort of problem. And it will create a knowledge article on solving this problem. Right? It'll automatically route and classify tickets so that there's no ticket queues to arbitrage where tickets get lost in there for days at a time and nobody gets the help that they're looking for. And so this is all culminated in an AI fabric for us. It's a mesh of capabilities that are all productivity enhancers so that we could launch our virtual agent. And the virtual agent is like the first point of contact for someone coming in from a self-service perspective. So they can chat with an AI who will look through these knowledge articles that AI helped write or AI helped improve. It will recommend ways for the person who's having the problem to fix the problem on their own. So hopefully they can just self-serve. And that's why, we had that conversation about kind of do more with less. So you don't have to hire more and more people in the service desk. You can do more with the staff you have. And then let's say you can't get to a resolution on your own. It will even submit the request on your behalf and then route it to the right people. And then one of my favorite things is within that same interface, if you don't want to talk to AI, which many people still don't, you can just click the, hey, I want to talk to a human button. And then you're chatting with the human being on the other side of that service desk instead of the AI system. So there's so much potential for productivity gains with some of these basic capabilities, right? That doesn't even start to touch some of the things we talked about. I'll get into a buzzword here with agentic AI. I think that's a huge buzzword right now, way overused. But when I think about agentic AI, it's like taking actions. And I made my feelings clear earlier that I think it's super dangerous to set a system free within your environment to let it make configuration changes and anything complex. But there may be some very simple things that you say, you know what? Hey, this is fine. We're gonna allow AI to do these few little things on its own because it's the repetitive things that Victor, you mentioned. You just don't want to do all of those repetitive things, and that's fine to push that off to a machine. It's not going to hurt anything. All right. So that's where these productivity enhancements are really coming in.
So Xurrent can be found at Xurrent.com. That's Xurrent.com. Jim, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation.
We hope this episode was helpful to you. If you want to discuss it or ask a question, please reach out to us. Our contact information and a link to the Slack workspace are at devopsparadox.com/contact. If you subscribe through Apple Podcast, be sure to leave us a review there. That helps other people discover this podcast. Go sign up right now at devopsparadox.com to receive an email whenever we drop the latest episode. Thank you for listening to DevOps Paradox.